Joshua Van will ultimately get destroyed by Alexandre Pantoja. Now, I'm a big fan of Joshua Van, and I've been a big fan of Joshua Van ever since I saw him fight Kevin Borjas on UFC 295. I've been paying attention to this guy's career. I've been paying attention to him longer than your average person. I've really enjoyed watching Joshua Van, and because of this, because I've been watching him for so long, I feel like I have the insights, the knowledge to really understand where Joshua Van's ceiling lies. So guys, let me explain to you why I believe Joshua Van will get absolutely destroyed by Alexandre Pantoja. Now, this fight is the co-main event of UFC 323, and the whole card is kind of just okay. It's a decent card. It's just missing a little bit of that cherry on top. It's a decent card, lots of good fights, but this is one of the fights that really stand out to me. It's the co-main event for the world flyweight title, and I'm really excited to see it, but I just believe people are overestimating Joshua Van because they like him so much. I understand. I've done this multiple times before. Sean O'Malley versus Merab. I thought Sean was going to win, but maybe it's just because I like him so much. But let's talk about Joshua Van versus Pantoja, and let's talk about Joshua Van first off. Now, Joshua Van is mainly a boxer. He does have some pretty decent and solid kicks, and he can mix them up fairly well, especially to the legs. Joshua Van also has some pretty underrated takedowns. I really like the way he sets up his takedowns. You know, he boxes guys, and then the moment his opponents start using that high guard to block the shots that are coming to his head, he shoots that double leg and he gets it down with pretty decent ease. But he's mainly a boxer. Joshua Van mainly does most of his work in the boxing. But one thing I feel about boxing, you know, when people say, oh, this guy's the best boxer, Elliot Tapur is the best boxer in the UFC, what does boxing mean? It's kind of like this umbrella term. There's multiple aspects to boxing. You have, you know, counters with boxing. You have defensive boxing. You have footwork in boxing. You have shot selection in boxing. So when I say Joshua Van is a good boxer, this is what I really mean. Joshua Van does a couple things extremely well. I really like the distance control with Joshua Van, you know, but he usually does take a couple minutes to really figure out his range before he can start really unloading on guys' face. You know, it's very similar to like a Petr Yan. You know, Joshua Van fits into the category of data downloader. I honestly think he does it a little bit better than Petr Yan because I feel like Petr Yan is still downloading data from his first Merab fight. You know what I mean? Like, this guy takes forever to download data, and all of, you know, Petr Yan's fans are like, dude, he's just downloading data. Wait to the 5th round where he has all of his data downloaded. Joshua Van actually does this, and he actually executes on it extremely well. He really does a good job of finding his range once he, you know, takes that first round to download data. He also does a really good job of never really getting hit clean. He's really good at rolling with shots and firing back at the same time, but he can get caught early in fights. You saw this with the Kevin Borjas fight. You also saw it with that fight. You know, you saw it in that fight. Unfortunately, that was a brutal knockout. I hate to see that fight. But Joshua Van also does a really good job of mixing his shots to the body, you know, nasty body shots. He times it really well when guys are least expecting it. But I think one of the abilities that gets underrated of Joshua Van, and honestly, I think it's his best ability, is the ability to make his opponents fight his game. You know, I feel like when I'm watching the first round of a Joshua Van fight, I'm like, okay, this is pretty competitive. You know, his opponents are going to the legs, doing a good job. His opponents are mixing in the takedowns. But as the fights go on, his opponents end up just purely boxing with Joshua Van. And in a boxing fight, Joshua Van wins that 9 out of 10 times. So it's like this weird ability to like mind control his opponents, Joshua Van's opponents, like he's Vecna or something, and just make his opponents do what he wants them to do. It's really weird to see it, but he does a really good job of this. I don't know how he does it. I'd like to learn, but he does a good job of doing it. But all these good things being said about, you know, Joshua Van, Pantoja is a different beast. He is a different animal, and I think he's probably one of the worst matchups for Joshua Van in that top 5, because Pantoja, he walks guys down. Shout out 6ix9ine. You know, there's a word I can't say in there, but let's just say he walks brothers down. You know what I mean? Hey, cut me some slack here. You know, Pantoja goes out there from round 1 and he tries to finish guys. Very similar to like a Chimaev. You know, he goes out there, he doesn't care if it's 3 rounds, 5 rounds. He will put an incredible pace on you from that very first round. And this can work. He can get early finishes, but sometimes he doesn't get that early finish and he has to go 5 rounds. And although you might think that someone like Pantoja gets tired, and he even looks extremely tired after that first round, even in the second round of fights, this guy looks extremely gassed. He looks slow, he's hunched over, his hands are down, but he then proceeds to go into the fifth round and sometimes even beats guys in their fifth round. And it's just like, what? How is that? You look gassed in that second round. How are you looking the exact same? You look gassed out in the fifth round, but you're still winning it. It's really confusing, but an amazing ability to just literally just mentally will through a fight. I think it's absolutely astonishing to see, to be honest. I also like the creativity of Pantoja's takedowns. You know, against Kai Kara-France, he had the body lock, and then he stepped behind the legs of Kai Kara-France and just dragged him down. I was like, you don't really see that all too often in UFC. I don't know why. It seems very effective. I don't know why. Maybe there's a couple drawbacks I'm not really seeing, but he does a really good job of tripping guys against the cage, grabbing onto them, holding onto them, and not letting his grip break. And his striking's pretty good. You know, it's not the best striking. Like, he can get hit quite a lot, actually, but his chin is absolutely amazing. Like, he was fighting Figueiredo when Figueiredo was knocking nearly everybody out, and he took Figueiredo to a decision, and his chin held up, and that's just an crazy feat, especially at flyweight, to survive Deiveson Figueiredo's power. Now, in a fight between Pantoja and Joshua Van, how do I really see this? Well, Pantoja will ultimately take Joshua Van down. He will get on top of him. And I think the ability of Joshua Van needing to take a round to, get that distance, find out his distance, will play against him here, because Joshua Van will not be able to get his distance, figure his range, because Pantoja is going to take him to the ground. You can't find your range when you're on the ground. And I also think, Pantoja does have the jiu-jitsu advantage. We really haven't seen Joshua Van, having to scramble out of bad positions on the ground. We have seen him getting taken down and get up to his feet, but those are against pure wrestlers, and Pantoja's BJJ game is just on a whole nother level. Do I think Joshua Van can use his butterfly hooks to get up? Do I think he can escape side control with, out expelling too much energy? Do I think Joshua Van can escape the back position? Probably not against Pantoja. He's just too heavy on top, too much of a good controller on top. And I think Pantoja will take Joshua Van down. I kind of know that's going to happen. And what do you think is going to happen from there? You think he's going to stay on top and hold him down? He could, and that could honestly win him the fight. But I think, because Joshua Van's so young, he's like 23 or 24 years old. He's new to the game. I think he started off with boxing when he was young, but didn't pick up MMA till later on in his life. I just think he's going to get submitted in that very first round. And I like Joshua Van. I like his come-up story. I like that he's young. I like that he's entertaining. I like all these aspects about Joshua Van. I feel like a lot of other people like these same aspects of Joshua Van, but it's just like, do I think he's going to become champ? Not today, not this week, definitely not this week, not at UFC 323. Maybe in the future when he can sharpen up those tools and really refine his ground game. I think he can. I think he can pose a lot of threats to these top guys, and especially considering Pantoja's kind of on the latter part of his career, I think he can become a decent champion, but just not right now. Pantoja's going to be able to submit him in round one. This is what I think, but let me know your guys' thoughts. Who do you think win, and who do you want to win? It's been your boy Dagan May, and I'm signing out. Peace.